everybody, welcome to the configuration and technical video for Syberia 1. Get my screens open here. Okay, so in this video we'll be setting up Syberia 1, general and advanced settings where needed. This will hopefully put the game in the best playable state it can be. This is going to be a lengthy one, a lot of information and details to go over. Luckily not many in-game settings to cover. So I got all my notes and everything we're going to go over here in this note that I've written up. And then I've got my install directory over here just so if there's any kind of file manipulation or anything that needs to be discussed about what's in the install directory, it's easily accessible. So we're going to get down here to this introduction and preliminary setup. You know, it's crazy when we just did an introduction video. Now my config and tech video has an introduction too. So just to make it known, I'm using the Steam version of this game. There is a GOG.com or Good Old Games version available as well. I don't have any knowledge to share for that version though. It may work better or it may work worse. Syberia 1 runs in DirectX 8, possibly DirectX 7 from what I remember. All that said, this is an old game, so expect it to have issues. Installing this from Steam and running the game resulted in the game not even starting. You could see the game attempt to open its window and start, then it just closes and you're back at the desktop. As I stated already, this is an old game. However, I'm not giving Valve a pass on selling games through Steam that won't even start. It's pretty ridiculous if you ask me. The majority of people are not going to be tech savvy with PC games. They will end up just returning it and miss out on a good game. All because Steam, Valve, doesn't verify game functionality. You could go into the properties of the games.exe, mess around with the settings in the compatibility tab, hoping you can get it working, and you might be able to some degree anyway. The following adjustments, though, will be your best method in this case. The original information or posting of this method isn't mine. You can find it here on the Steam forums for Syberia. And any links you see in any of these videos, introduction videos, config and tech or modding, they'll all be in the description. This is just here for me to see and remember to put in the video when I upload it. But I'll put this link in here and it will take you to the posting on the Steam forums where you can see the original post. I do advise that you read the posting and the comments so you can get all the information you can. All credits and thanks goes to Tony, I'll just call him, for his efforts in creating that post and all that information. I do suggest that you follow my tweaks though, as I've made adjustments and tested this as of 5/24/2023. There seems to be a lot of confusion in the comments of the post. If you have any issues, you can always ask me for help. I'll do my best to help you sort it out. So the thing we're going to be working with is called DG Voodoo, and it's an API, application interface. The version I'm currently using, which is this right here, is the file, along with a few others we'll talk about in a minute. My current version that I downloaded is 2.8.2, so by the time whenever you see this video, which could be years from now, there's no telling what version is going to be the current one. But this is what I am using for this playthrough that I'm going to do for the game. So this software can be used on other games that are old as well to achieve similar results and improvements that you're going to see for this game. The original posting above says you need to make a custom resolution using your graphics card settings in order to get proper 4:3 square with the two vertical black bars on the sides. 4:3 ratio for this game, but you don't need to do this as you set this up directly in DG Voodoo. So you're forcing it in there anyway, so there's no need to do it through your graphics card as well. However, this is still good information that you can apply to other games in the future that you want to force 4:3 ratio on and don't have the benefit of using, take that in there, of using DG Voodoo. And I have used this myself, actually. I can't remember the instance that I used it in, but I was trying to force that ratio because it was the correct one. And I ended up discovering, before I discovered this post, that if you use that resolution there, you can make a 1080p resolution display in a 4:3 resolution correctly, say. So yeah, I wrote these down here just to kind of give you a representation. So if you tell DG Voodoo to run the game at 1920 by 1080, which it wasn't designed for, which would equal 16:9 ratio, you'll get a full screen, but you'll end up stretching the image horizontally. And when you do that on your TV for movies or for games, it'll make everybody look fatter or wider and a lot shorter. So, I mean, and the easiest way to tell if you're watching something in the correct ratio or not is look for something circular. And if there's something like a round clock or a round plate in the scene or in the game, and it's not circular, it's more of an oval shape, then that means it's being stretched. Those are good reference points to tell if you're seeing the image appropriately. So this is just to indicate if you do that, this is what you're going to get, which would be wrong. So what you want to set, if you are using a 1920 by 1080 screen, which I am for 16:9, it's a 1080p Vizio television. So for me to get the proper 4:3 ratio that will scale the game correctly and make everything look uniform graphically, you need to use this resolution, 1440 by 1080. This will put it in the 4:3 proper ratio. And I looked this up, some other information, and compiled it to basically get this. I think it's correct. I could be wrong. I don't have any experience with 4K. I'm just going by what I read and hoping I'm writing it back correctly. So if you want a 4:3 resolution in basically 2160p, as you can see here, the difference, then you would use this in DG Voodoo, which I'll show you how to do all this. I can't promise that'll work, but it's a good starting point if you want to try to get a 4K resolution. So go ahead and make the custom resolution in your GPU settings. You just don't need to worry about using it for this game. I will show you how to do that. In my case, I have a NVIDIA GeForce, so I'll be doing this through the NVIDIA control panel. If you have AMD, something similar is what you will access. Trying to get my start menu to go away. Okay, so you'd want to come in here, and I'm saying to do this resolution even though you're not using it, just because this might benefit you later in another game that you're trying to force 4:3 in. So it won't be in the list, obviously. It will be now because I've added it. This is me adding that. Let's see, I have to apply now because let me just cancel there. Okay, so I'm on the active resolution that I am using, 60 Hertz, 60 FPS. So if you click Customize, you can select it from a list, possibly. I don't think you can. I think I had to create it. Yeah, so you'd create custom. You'll take in this screen, and you'd basically want to make sure that you put in the 1440 here. Make sure this is on 60, representing 60 frame rate, 60 FPS, 60 hertz, matching your television. Keep it on progressive scan. Leave all this on automatic and leave it alone. It doesn't matter. You can test it, whatever I've already created. You'll save it, it'll appear in this list. You can have both selected so that they both appear. Then you just click OK. And then you have the option of selecting it and switching to it, which will basically force your resolution into 4:3, whether anything likes it or not. And that way, a game that you can't use DG Voodoo on, you can just use this method and maybe get at least the correct aspect ratio. And always double check that your refresh rate is correct, because I have noticed in just my testing and doing this myself that like that right there, I clicked up here and it just decided, you know, it's going to switch to 59 hertz instead of 60. And so when you come back to pick your setting that you do want it on, just don't always trust that it's going to be there. So kind of did it right there, didn't it? Yeah, clicking one of these and switching back to the active resolution left it on 59. Click off of it and back on it, fixes it. So it's a little weird. Just make sure that whatever resolution you pick, that your 60 hertz, 120, whatever it is you're trying to go for, matches. So in this case, you just want to leave it like it is, because we're going to fix this through DG Voodoo. But I wanted you to see how to add that in there, because it can help you in other situations, as I already explained. So moving on, you can use the link in the original posting above. Look for the link, or for the section that says link to DG Voodoo. I think that whole word is the link to it. And I will also provide the link myself in the description of this video. So this will be in the description. And I know they're all tiny URLs and hard to distinguish, but I'll put the label of what you're clicking the link for, so you'll know what it's going to. So you can get it from either place. If you go to the posting up here for the original method by, where's his name here? Tony. Yeah, Tony. You can get to it from there, or you can use my link. And when you go to the link, just look under the section that says latest stable version. Get the one that says for regular usage. Once you have DG Voodoo downloaded and extracted, take the DG Voodoo CPL.exe, which is this, and move it into your Syberia folder, where you have Syberia.exe and game.exe. So folder that has these two things in it. And I do want to show you, this is what you will download from my link or his, and I'll show you what's in it. I'll basically be explaining here what to do, but I want to show it to you as well. So here's the original file from the zip that you want to drag into your Syberia folder with your game's executables. And then, as it says here, then open the MS folder. You can ignore all these other things, all this other stuff. Unless you want to read this quick guide, we can check it out. So this would be worth referencing, especially if you're having issues. I didn't look at this personally. Normally I would, but I was already following another guide. So yeah, there's definitely some good stuff in here. Games, what are these supported games? Sorry, my web page darkener is screwing this page up. So Another World. That's if you're playing the original, but there's a 15 or 25th anniversary edition that you can get now, so kind of makes that unnecessary. Blood 2, I've played that. It's like Doom. Curious to see what other games are supported in DG Voodoo. Final Fantasy 11. Gothic 2, that's a cool old school RPG. Okay, Resident Evil. PC version of the PlayStation 1 port. Okay. And the second game as well. Silent Hill 3, huh? If resolution or MSAA is overridden, then fading screens show a sliding effect due to the technique used in the game. I don't think it's a major issue you can be living with, but in competition, the game looks fantastic at high resolutions. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, definitely, oh yeah, I was going to show you here. This is when you go to the link to download it, latest stable version. And then for regular usage, and I'm using 2.82 right now because it's the latest. I was definitely like 4 or 5 versions behind since the last time I used this on Syberia. Don't worry about any of this unless you care about it. That's all you need to do what we're doing. Back to this. This is not important either. I'm not even sure why it's really here. Once you run the program, it's going to generate its own config file anywhere and put it somewhere else, so you don't need that either. You just need this in your main folder as Syberia, and then in the MS folder under x86, take all 4 of these DLL files and drag them into the same area as your executables. So you'll see mine here. That's all of them. Just basically some DirectX files to make this game run in a higher form of DirectX and stuff like that. DD draws, direct draw. It's like kind of a prequel to what became DirectX, I think. So anyway, basically those 5 files you need in this folder. Once that is done, we'll now start configuring DG Voodoo proper. Open the file dgvoodoo.cpl.exe in your Syberia folder. Go ahead and open that with you. You're going to have a little window pop up like this. Just leave it sitting here. Screenshots of the settings being adjusted will be provided in the description of this video. If you would like them separate from the video, meaning so you don't have to like pause or take your own screenshots in my video that you're watching, I'll put a link in the description. Basically going to be back here, screenshots. It's going to take you to a folder on my Google Drive, and you'll have these 2 folders. And I think this is the right one. Yeah, we can delete that. It's going to, see, what did I say here? Settings being used, right? You'll see DG Voodoo settings. This is separate. We'll get to that later. And you're basically going to see this, three tabs, 3 pictures showing you the settings that I'm going to show you here. Go back here to that. Okay. So the config folder at the top can stay what it is unless you want to change it. Just the location where DG Voodoo will store its settings. Just in your user app data roaming. Basically that file I was telling you was in the program. Nope, not that. This file. It's basically going to generate that file. And it is going to put it in this area. You might want to switch it to your Syberia directory, where you have Syberia installed, but you don't have to. Just leave it like that. You'll see 3 tabs: General, Glide, and DirectX. I'll be starting with the General tab. So the first setting you're going to have here is in the rendering category for Output API. Set it to Best Available 1 as your option. The game will probably most likely use DirectX 11. I just leave it on that so that it picks the 11 it wants to, which is what it's using in my case. I don't really want to mess with DirectX 12 in this game since it's still pretty new. I mean, you can try if you want, but I can't guarantee results, so leave it on Best Available 1. And then the same category, rendering adapter to use, select your GPU or your graphics card that you use. So in my case, it's a NVIDIA RTX 2070. And then for rendering full screen output, select your screen that you use. You could leave it on default. I changed it to be my display 1, which is my Vizio television that I use as a monitor. The next setting category will be appearance. Appearance, and you'll want to put it on full screen. That's another thing I think I've failed to leave a note to mention, but now that I see it, I'll mention it. You can hover over the settings in this program and it will give you a descriptor or a description of what the setting does, a little tooltip, so you can get a little more information. So don't forget you can do that, because I won't be breaking everything down into the tooltip level detail, but it's there to reference. So the next category is appearance. Put it on full screen. Just check full screen. And then scaling mode. Where's scaling mode? Here. It's a drop-down option. Put that on centered and keep aspect ratio. As it says here, same as center, but scaling is done by the wrapper. The resolution that we're going to put this game into is what the wrapper helps do. So you want to do this to get the best results from doing that. Under progressive scan line order, go ahead and check that. Progressive is always a better option than using interlaced, which it will by default if you don't check it. This setting here, I think I missed notating that. I'm going to go ahead and add it. Because I do keep my my notes for later reference, so I didn't add this in, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it. Leave this, damn it, leave this unchecked. I didn't even spell leave right again. There we go. So as it says here, let you choose one. However, if other, let's see, I gotta click it, it's not highlighting at all. Enumerates refresh rates is the resolution selector combo box and lets you choose one. However, if other than the application default is used, it can cause heavy animation lagging or glitches. So I don't want any extra lagging or glitching for any reason, so I'm not using it. Leave this unchecked, as it can cause lag. That's all you need to know. Next category is color adjustments. I left these all at the default, 100% normal and 100%. Next category is miscellaneous. Check keep window aspect ratio and check capture mouse. Just to keep all that uniform and so you can actually see your mouse. Probably more pertaining to if you're using windowed mode. But you always want to see the mouse. You need to see a mouse cursor in this game, so leave that checked. Now apply those settings, and that's everything you should have to do for the General tab. And our next tab is going to be the Glide tab. The Glide settings don't really apply as we will be using DirectX. You can see my settings here in the glide tab. I've adjusted a few, but just set these to look like mine. Basically, the thing I've changed, I think I put this at 8x, just because I'm using that on the General tab. Well, actually on the DirectX tab. Go away, tooltip. I don't know why that tooltip's. Okay. On the DirectX tab, I'm using 8x as well. And I went ahead and forced this to be, I think it was defaulted at my set resolution. I put it at the same resolution that I'm going to be using in DirectX as well, just to have the 4:3 set. And I forced vertical sync just because I always use vertical sync, either in the game or I force it through the NVIDIA card just so I can make sure that it's locked and I don't get screen tearing and all that good stuff. I don't have a G-Sync monitor that can automatically do any of that, so I always force VSync. I think this was checked by default, so I left it alone. So just basically set that up like that, apply it, and then we're ready for the DirectX tab already. So make sure disable and pass through to real DirectX is unchecked. This may sound better. If you do want to remove ddraw.dll, d3d8.dll, or d3d9.dll, but would like to use the real DirectX, then just enable this option. Well, I tried to enable this option just out of curiosity to see what would happen, and the game just crashed. So it wasn't able to pass the correct files needed to get the game to even run, so it's just going to give you a little pop-up telling you the game didn't run, basically. So don't check that. It shouldn't be checked by default, but I tested it, so don't use it. So the first category will be video card. Select DG Voodoo Virtual 3D Accelerated Card. That's the default option. That's what Tony's guide recommends to use. I don't know what will happen if you use any of these other settings. This is what the game used, I'm sure, was designed around using when it came out new. A 3D accelerator card. That's what they were and were called back then, before NVIDIA and AMD took over. So leave it on that. The next setting is in texturing. Actually, that's wrong. Next setting is video card VRAM. I think this was on like 128 by default, but the post by Tony selects 1024. So put it on that. It probably wouldn't even hurt to actually max it all the way, but so far in my testing I wasn't having any issues just leaving it on that, but you can potentially put this all the way to 4096 and not have any side effects. If you do that and you test it and it doesn't cause you any problems, please let me know and I'll make that the new default for my own usage and videos. So the next category here is going to be called texturing, and under filtering is this drop down menu. This is very important part. Set this drop down to app driven. Your first instinct would be to force anisotropic filtering, which is what this is, to 16x, which you would do in any in-game setting that you were playing that offered it, or you would go into your graphics card and force it. In any modern games that you're playing now, which is what most people are playing, it's not even an issue because it's probably just a setting in your game that you can use, but a lot of old games had the ability to use this effect and setting, which I think in most cases affects how ground textures, grass, ground, floor looks in games. Possibly somewhat to do with wall textures, but mainly the ground. But a lot of older games had the ability to use this effect or push this effect higher than what it might be set at, which would have been 2 possibly or something. But they don't give you any options in the game menu, so you'd either have to force it in the game settings or use something like this to use it. But in my experience and other people's experience that you can read in the post of how to use DG Voodoo in the comments, same people having same issues. And I did as well. See if I said here. Yeah, in my case, if you use any other setting than app-driven, you will have black lines appear in the game's textures. In the first area of the game, you can see this around Kate. Kate is the character, the female character you play. You can see this around her luggage that she leaves at the door in the first room that she's in when you start the game and have control of her. You can also see this on the bulletin board on the wall to the left of the luggage. And you can also see this around a little key on the main reception desk that you need to use on the bell. And furthermore, when you use the bell and the bell animates, you can see this same black line, a different one, but a black line appear vertically as the animation takes place. Because this is kind of one of those games where it looks like, kind of like Myst did, where they kind of overlaid the video file of the animation taking place over the game world. And it's like you can kind of see the seam of the square outline that they cut out where they put the animated video file to represent the animation. So this setting, putting on anything other than app-driven, which whether the app being the game is actually using anisotropic filtering, who knows if it is or isn't. And I didn't even bother trying to force it through my NVIDIA card. I just didn't care that much, and it's not going to affect the graphics quality that much anyway. So I didn't mess with that. Just because this game is already taking a third-party thing, you know, to get working. I didn't want to force anything more through the graphics card itself into the game than I had to. So yeah, back on track here. So I'll show you some screenshots now, right? This should fix most of the black lines that appear. This setting doesn't take away much from the graphical fidelity, like I just said. But like I said, fix most. It's not going to fix all. And we'll get to that in a minute as well. But I want you to see these screenshots. These will be in the video description too, to my Google Drive, so you can see them outside of this video just as a picture if you like. So, doesn't relate. I'm just trying to remember what it relates to. It's not that. Okay, so the issues. So here's the suitcase and the board. This is with the GD Voodoo set to anisotropic filtering times 16, which I told you not to use. So this is the first kind of room where you have control of Kate, your character. This game's in a third-person view, as you can tell. So here's our luggage right here, and here's the bulletin board, and it's hard to see. I can understand. So I'm going to zoom in on it for you, make it more visible. You can see what I'm talking about. So looking at the luggage here, you can see the black line starts here horizontally and then comes down vertically. So basically, and you can see it here already trying to go to the left again. So it's an outline of the suitcase because the suitcase becomes an object that has to be animated and removed in the scene. It's basically kind of like burned or baked into the background here, but when it needs to be animated, the animated one just becomes overlaid. This one gets taken away in the background. But because it's animated and overlaid onto it and using DG Voodoo and these different settings, it causes this outline to be visible even when it's not being messed with. Same thing on the bulletin board. You can see a vertical line here because you do come over here and you take this note off of the bulletin board, so it becomes an animated object. A lot of things will in this game, and so you will see these black lines a lot in this game, which is the reason why you want to fix them if you can, just because it's really going to degrade the quality of the game having to see this across multiple areas. Looks like there's another line right here I can see. I'm seeing more than I even knew were there by zooming in. Nothing over here that I can see. Definitely see a line right there. It shouldn't be there. I don't remember this particular chair or table being messed with though, but maybe it does get messed with. Anything on the stairs? No. Okay, so there's an example of that. Here's the key, which, let me show you where that is. She's covering it, but it's in front of her on the desk right here. And points of interest here is the little tiny key on the desk that you can barely see. And then this area, and I'll zoom in on it as well. So this is with the problem occurring, not fixed. So here's the key that we have to pick up and remove from the desk so it becomes animated. You can see the black box. Now that I zoom in really close on it, you can see the black box around it. And there's no black line here, but when you do use the key on this thing, which you put it in his back, you turn it and then he rings the bell. When he is doing that, then he has a black box around him as well, because he becomes animated. So then in this location right here, you're going to see a black vertical line. I haven't animated him yet, otherwise you would see it. And what is this? That does not apply to this issue. So I will show that in a minute. So here's the proof, of it being fixed. Here's the suitcase and the board again. Same shot, everything. And when we zoom in here on those items, you can see there's no longer a line going around them, so they're fixed. And then here's the desk and the little key. It's not animated. I didn't bother to circle where it would be when you animate it. But here's a little key, and as you can see, there's no square at all around it now. Looks like it should. Obviously, the white circle's not going to be there. I put that there as an indicator for you guys. Shouldn't have to explain that, but some people out there I might need to explain that to. Of course, that doesn't matter either yet. So that's an example of putting this on app-driven. You can try yourself. I'm not telling you not to. Definitely try to put it on 16x, but if it's failing and causing that glitch to occur, which it shouldn't, and you see those black lines that I showed you, then you'll know that the setting is causing the problem. So put it on app-driven if you are, and then apply your settings. So that's really important, really important area here to fix a glitch that this actually introduces into the game. So the next setting will be texturing checkboxes. These two here. Just leave both of these blank. They're unchecked. They're unchecked by default. The guide on the post on Steam does not recommend checking them. Let's go ahead and look at what they say. Keeps texture filtering from point sampled textures. Keeps texture filtering for point sampled textures. It can be useful for games where background or HUD textures are point sampled, but you want to force filtering in general for all other typically 3D elements. Force filter only if not point sampled. So basically HUD, like where it shows your health bar or a mini map or a potion in your inventory or whatever. I guess that's meaning for certain HUDs and certain games that you can apply anisotropic filtering to, then you can force this to do that. So, and disable MIP mapping. Disable MIP mapping can be used to make texture surfaces sharper. Yeah, which not entirely necessary. So yeah, that's why they're not checked. The next setting is going to be the resolution here. So my resolution is 1920 by 1080, 1080p resolution, since I don't have a 4K TV. So for me to get the proper width to get 4:3 ratio, which is square with the two black bars on both sides going vertically, you'll need to set this to 1440 by 1080. You will have black bars on the sides, but this is normal, because this is the way the game was presented to look. The game can be ran at 1920 1080 and fill the screen, because as you can see, you can select the resolution down here. And it will fill the screen. You will in turn stretch the image horizontally in the process. So I will never recommend this in any game that uses 4:3 ratio. I'd much rather see the black bars than have my whole image stretched. A game of reference that I've already played called Scratches. I didn't use GD Voodoo, and it wasn't even on the game list for being usable. But that game was intended to look like this game will look when I record it, and have those two black vertical bars on the side. But something to do with my recording software, which I use NVIDIA GeForce 4, it decided to record the game stretched in widescreen. So unfortunately, that whole entire game's playthrough for me was stretched to widescreen when I thought I was going to be getting the 4:3 ratio. It's because I didn't do much looking at my own video for that recording, and when I did, it was already too late in the series, and I noticed, hey, these videos are stretched. They're not supposed to be widescreen. So that's another thing to think about as a YouTube creator. If you're playing old games and you're wanting 4:3 or expecting 4:3, make sure you're getting it before you start getting deep into a game series. Do a test video and see how it actually records, because your video recording software can automatically just decide it's going to stretch it for you. But that game, Scratches, in my playthrough is stretched, which is a shame. But I don't really feel like replaying the game and doing it in the correct ratio, so I'm leaving it alone. So that will do that. The next thing that we're going to adjust the category will be behavior. Check both of these boxes. Application, controlled full screen, windowed state, and disable Alt-Enter to toggle screen state. Yeah, I would leave both of these on. Especially, you don't want to accidentally press Alt-Enter and come out of into windowed mode, or cause a game like this that's old to crash simply because you came out of full screen mode. So this is just to help you keep it in the correct mode and not cause any crashes also in the process. The next setting will be anti-aliasing, MSAA. Syberia has its own anti-aliasing setting in the game's options. However, a lot of sources and people online say that it is broken and doesn't work. I still leave it on in the game, but I also force it to 8x in DG Voodoo. You can force this, which I'll go ahead and show you as well, in your NVIDIA control panel or your AMD card. You can go to Manage 3D Settings, click Program Settings, and it'll either be set on it, or you can pick it from a recent list. You can add it, but under anti-aliasing mode, you can go to Enhance or Override, generally Override, and then you can force 8x, those two settings. You have to use this one to use this one anyway. Apply those, and that will try to force just basic level anti-aliasing into any game that you're playing. But since GD, I'm just going to cancel, yep. Since DG Voodoo has the option, just go ahead and do it through there. So it's basically the same thing. Leaving it on in the game, though, is fine. Just pick either the DG Voodoo option version or your graphics card as the forced method. Just don't use both methods. I'm just going to use DG Voodoo. Okay. So the next section is going to be miscellaneous. And this is also a very, very important section. Which goes all the way down, goes pretty far down. All the way to there. So this is very important. And it's the first setting in the list that's the most important, which used to be called bilinear blit stretch. In the current version of 2.82, they've renamed it to bilinear DD/CPU operations. But either way, this is the same setting right here. This is another setting that can cause the black lines and the textures issue, at least from my testing. You will lose a little smoothness in the textures, meaning a little more jaggedness by disabling this setting, but you will gain not having to deal with the annoying black lines. And this is not necessarily the same black lines I've showed you. This is black lines that appear in different areas of the game. And this was all found just in that first room area screen where you have control of Kate. I'm hoping all of this will just fix the rest of the black lines in the game that were going to appear. It's an old game. You're going to have aliasing regardless. Even if the in-game's aliasing worked, it still wouldn't be good enough. The other thing of not using this setting is the text in notes will also be a little less detailed with the setting off. There isn't much you can do about that. In my opinion, the bilinear setting makes things look worse anyways, because it is blurring, muddying up the overall image to make it look smoother. So I wouldn't recommend using that setting even if it didn't cause the black lines. Tony, in the posted guide that he put up on Steam, he does recommend use it because he has it on. But it's causing me extra black lines, and like I said, I don't like the way it affects the textures. Yes, you will find this setting in a lot of emulators out there too, for like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, whatever. I don't ever use the setting then either. I will show you a screenshot regarding the black lines caused by the setting in Syberia, and I'll put a link to it in the description. So yeah, let's look at that real quick. So here is a picture in the game, and this is where I got the series speculation, can you guess the game image. So this bilinear better text, this is with that setting, bilinear, where's both names? Right here. Either one of these settings, it doesn't matter which one. This is with the setting on. So it looks fine. You know, the text is readable, maybe a little blurry, but the game's going to be a little blurry, but it's legible and readable. This is with the setting off. So you can see how you lose a lot of definition in some of the letters. Back on, off, on, off. And you can see, like, even in the circle here, it's adding, so this is on, off. You can see it's adding aliasing. The circle's becoming a little more jagged in this situation. So I'm just letting you watch. On, off, on, off. So it does look better text-wise with the setting on, but this setting is also having a graphical effect throughout the whole entire game, not just with text. So I'm choosing to leave this setting off, which means my text is going to look this way in notes and throughout the game. but I can get by with it. I can read it. As far as the gameplay goes, I'm going to be reading any text. I don't know how it affects the subtitles, but the subtitles were fine, so it's not really going to have a big bearing on those anyway. Some things, a lot of things, a lot of text is or dialogue is spoken in this game, and for all the rest of it, I'm going to be reading it anyway. So, but it's going to look a little degraded. Okay, so that talks about the text, and I made my piece as to why I don't like using bilinear. I think sometimes it's called trilinear, which is a better version of it, but it probably still introduces the same effects, to the same kind of negative side effects to get the effect that it's trying to do, which is to try to make something look cleaner or not necessarily sharper, but I would say smoother. If you wanted it to look sharper, you wouldn't use the setting, because it tries to dull that sharpness down and make it look smoother, make it look more modern, but in the process it doesn't do any services to the actual graphics or the art style that the artist was trying to get across in the game. And especially using it in something like this game, which it does have pixelation anyway, but something like Nintendo, like a Mario or Zelda, using this effect in those games, I mean, if that's what you like, that's what you like, but it's supposed to be pixelated for a reason, so. So I showed you the screenshots. I'm going to put the link to those screenshots. It'll just take you to a folder that looks like this, I believe. Yeah. And you can open these folders within the folder and look at these two. I separated these just because they were based around just the text, and these were based around images. One image I didn't show you here. Did I talk about it? No. So the other issue that using this bilinear blit stretch or DDCPU option can cause is I noticed in this scene, which is the other direction in the same room that we're looking at before, there's a line over here in this wall. I didn't see anything else over here necessarily caused. But when you zoom in on this, and this was not being caused by using the anisotropic filtering times 16, this was caused by using the setting we're directly talking about. It just adds in another one of those outlines, and it's outlined because through the window you can see rain animated, so it's an animated spot, so it basically has an overlaid video sitting here, so that's why that's doing it, I guess. But not using the setting and turning it off eliminates that line, as I will show you here where it's fixed. So you can see that it's gone. So there you go. And you can also see, I'm going to copy, new folder, floor, let's call it anisotropic filtering times 16 floor. I'm going to paste that in there. Issue, and I'm going to copy and paste this one in here so we can look at them back to back. So this one with the circle is the using the setting, and the one without the circle is without it. And if you look here, as I scroll, you can see that the textures on the floor, focus on the floor, like focus in, I can't really highlight it here, focus in like this area of the floor, and also focus and look back in this area on the wall. So it does affect the wall. Well, obviously it affects the wall, but you can see as I move this back and forth, this is the effect on, effect off. on, off, on, off. If you're looking and focusing on these areas, on, off, on, you can see that it gets sharper and clearer, and it gets blurrier and more fuzzy as I scroll through these pictures. And if you look really closely, really closely, you can see that there is more aliasing being introduced by not using the effect. If you zoom in, pause, take a screenshot, look at the images that I'm going to put on the Google Drive for you to look at. Take those images. I mean, I can do it here for you as well. We'll go back to with it on. It's just going to be a little more difficult because I can't zoom in and flip them back and forth. That's seamless. So this is with it on, and it's pixelated, but it's because we're zoomed in. But if we do the same thing to this image, not using the setting, you can see how much more pixelated this is in comparison. Or something like this over here. It's way more pixelated, and there's no denying it. This is with it. This is without it. You can tell there's more jaggedness. So that's what it is addressing. It's addressing the jaggedness in the models and the images, you know, on mostly flat surfaces, because that's where you get aliasing. But in order to do that, it has to mud up the image overall a little bit to achieve that, which I don't want. I would prefer the image to be a little sharper, with a little more aliasing, but be cleaner and clearer. This just muddies the whole image up, and I think it just downgrades the quality. So there's the pictures associated with that, which will be in the description as well. So as I'm stating here, they're both in this screen. The having the anisotropic filtering on 16x causes its own lines to appear in the game, and then using bilinear DD CPU, or what it was previously called, find it again, blit stretch, using that setting which the post recommends, and I think the program even sets as default, will cause two different types of lines. So I recommend app driven and leaving that off. Test it, test it, you know. It's going to blur your image regardless, and I think degrade your quality. But you may not have the lines, and you may prefer that more blurry, rounded, clean, unpixelated look. So you could have easily different results than me in doing something like this and using a program like this. I'm just letting you know my experience and what I've found to be the best thing to do. The next setting we have under miscellaneous is called Pong, not P-O-N-G like the game, but P-H-O-N-G shading. Apply it when available. This gives a little better shadowing effect. Mostly seems to be evident on the 3D models. Like Kate, or the little kid we were looking at sitting at that table, or anytime anything becomes an animated object in the game, it'll probably get this applied to it as well. But it basically makes the shadows and the shading of those shadows look better. And it does look better. I don't have a screenshot showing using it versus not, but I did test that, and it does make shadows look better, or gives the illusion of better shadows. Yeah, like Kate herself or the other NPCs or the characters. And if you hover over this one particularly, says if this option is enabled, then Phong shadowing is enabled in place of Garrod when it is possible. The tooltip eventually times out after like 10 seconds. You have to hover over it again. It works only when an application uses the fixed function vertex pixel pipeline and pushes all the work on the vertex transforming and lighting to Direct 3D or DirectX. When rendering primitives, keep in mind that it requires much more GPU power than default shading, which is going to be true, but if you're using any kind of a modern computer these days and you are playing an old game, you should have no problems using this. But if you are, or frame rate is a problem, I need to take a drink of water. Sorry, this video is getting really long. Sorry about that. I knew this video was going to be long, but sometimes you just got to stop and take a drink when you're talking for like 45 minutes straight, or you're not used to talking for 45 minutes straight. So yes, enable that. If you're having frame rate issues, then uncheck it. The last three things in the miscellaneous category are these three checkboxes. Force VSync. I always use VSync, as I already explained, I believe. To lock my FPS at 60, avoid screen tearing, keep my GPU from pushing out more frame rates than my monitor can handle, which just puts more wear and tear on your GPU. There's lots of reasons to make sure you're utilizing your frame rate accordingly to what you can push out and show on your television. G-Sync monitors, I've heard, I'm just going to say it again, I've heard can automatically adjust your frame rate, making forcing VSync irrelevant, but I don't have a G-Sync monitor. The negatives I've heard, not really personally experienced in my years of gaming on PC, but speedrunners will always claim that forcing VSync on will cause input lag, meaning lag in the controls. So when you press the button and tell Mario to jump, there's a slight delay or lag between when he actually jumps on the screen versus when you press the button. Speedrunners will tell you, and it may be true. I don't have any ways of analyzing it other than my own gameplay feel when I play games. I've never had, and I use VSync all the time, I've never really had it be an issue in too many games where I felt like it affected the gameplay. It might have been one or two games that I can think of. Not even off the top of my head. One of them might have been the game Stalker. Doing a forced VSync in that game might have caused like character movement to be weird or something. So anyway, I use it. Make your own decision on that. Either force it in here or force it through your graphics card. You'll have an option in your control panel. By the way, if you're curious, I've never explained, and I'm not really going to explain it here, but since I'm showing it, I'll let you look. These are my global settings that I use for NVIDIA. I'll just go down the list so that you can see what I have things set at. I'm not promising you all this is 100% accurate, but it's what I've come up with, and it's what I've come up with by all the Google searching and all the looking I've done online. It's been working for me for my usages. Some settings get added in that are new based on NVIDIA getting updates and whatnot, so I'm not caught up in all of it. But you can force VSync here, either as a global setting, which I don't recommend. I either use it or I don't use it. I don't ever mess with adaptive or fast or any of that. But I have it set to use the 3D application because it's always generally better to try to use any settings the game offers first over forcing it any other way. Because you would assume if the game is made and programmed well that the people that implemented those settings to be used in the game should have implemented them in the best manner to get the best outcome. You know what I'm saying? So always try to do anything you can through the game first, and if it doesn't work or it causes you a problem, then force it through a third-party software or through your graphics card. So in general, for all my games, I leave it on default here. But you come back in here, add the game exe. That's what Syberia uses, even though there's this pertains just to the program we're using. But basically, when you run the game through Steam, it executes this first, and then that file executes the Syberia one. So it's kind of like a chained exe. But this is the one you would need to modify to get the effect. If you modify the Syberia one, you may or may not get the effect, since this is the first one that is launched into memory and whatnot. So you'd want to scroll down to the same setting and just go to VSync and then go on and apply. And that forces it to be on just in this game. That is if you wanted to use it through here, which I don't recommend you do. Cancel, cancel. Because you can just do it through here if you want to use it. And then the last two settings are DG Voodoo watermark and fast memory access. Enables displaying the DG Voodoo logo during DirectX rendering, which I don't have a clue why you would want to do that as a user, unless you were just demonstrating something for them. But if you do check this, you're going to get something like this, or whatever their logo is, maybe that thing, which is just a small version of this. Yeah, you're just going to get something like that plastered on like the bottom right of your gameplay footage that you record. So yeah, don't check that, uncheck it. And then fast memory access. Yeah, not sure why anyone would want to use this. Fast memory access, leave this off unless you're having performance issues, which is what it says. Enables fast video memory access for locked surfaces. I'm not sure what locked surfaces means. Try it only if you experience low performance with an application. So leave that off by default. Right, so that pretty much covers the configuration of this. It did take a while to explain. I apologize, but I did get everything explained. So I feel like this will give you a really good baseline, these settings, to get the game at least functioning. And if something is weird or not to your liking, then you can maybe come in here and start tweaking, or leave me a comment in the video here, and I'll try to help you fix something if it's working differently than how I am telling you that you should have it working after using these settings. Just make sure every time you adjust something on one of these tabs that you apply it, and then you click OK. Let's back up. And so the last little section here is going to be some final notes. It's just some little things I wanted to point out here. I would have pointed out the tooltips by hovering over the options if I'd thought about it, but I think I did, but I forgot to write it down. So the first thing is you don't need to run DG Voodoo program when you play this game. Just make your adjustments and save them, and that's it. You only need to make the adjustments once. You're using the program to make the settings adjustments, which are being saved here, and that's telling the program what to do, and then these files, these DLL files, are what are making it happen. So it's already preset once you've saved your settings and everything. Some things you do, like certain games, you know, like that use trainers, for example, you do have to run those games while the game is running as well. But in this situation with this, you don't. So just configure it, set it, and forget it. In this game, the 3D models of characters and some objects will look a lot better than the backgrounds or environments they are in. This is just a limitation of the game and the Virtuals game engine that it runs on. That's the name of the game engine. I will show you here an example. Let's see, fixed. Yeah, so especially even if you zoom in on the boy back here, if you look at him and you look at everything else around him, you can tell he is clearer or higher resolution or sharper, and because he is. So for whatever reason, it's nothing to do with DG Voodoo causing it. It's just the game's graphics are this way. The animated characters look better than the environments that they're in. So there's just nothing that can really be done. You can kind of see Kate here, just compare her pants, to the ground. You can tell an obvious difference. So unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done for that. Old game engine limitations. This game's audio is in stereo and not surround, if anyone is wondering. You can try to force surround, but it's not necessarily going to benefit you very much in a game like this. I attempted to use Reshade, previously called Sweet Effects, to adjust the color in the game a little, but had issues. I won't be using either program, but if you do, I would recommend using an old version of Sweet Effects, as Reshade's compatibility list does not show support for Syberia, and it indeed does not support it very well. The main issues I was having was not that it was working, but that I could not configure Reshade the way you need to once you're in the game. It wasn't letting me have mouse cursor control. It's like the game, it could be possible that the DG Voodoo setting capture mouse might have been causing my issue, but if enabled, DG Voodoo forces the mouse pointer into the application window when it is full screen. This is useful on multi-monitor systems to prevent accidental clicking outside of the game window. So this could very well be, I was using this option simply because I want the cursor in the game to be visible because it needs to be. I didn't want that to be an issue. But I think that might have been taking the cursor's focus away in Reshade. So you can get away with Reshade. Try it if you want to use it. No, it doesn't really matter. It's not a big a deal if you don't use it in this game. But if you do, I would suggest testing and making sure capture mouse is off. And it should work. But it didn't work for me, and I don't really care to pursue it because it's not going to do much other than adjust the color, which is not that big of a deal, especially in a game like this that isn't full 3D anyway, full 3D environment. Covers that. Should be mentioned as well, there is a software, a third-party software you can get called a ScumMV, or ScumVM, I'm sorry, virtual machine. It is used to play some older PC games, such as like those graphic text adventures made by Sierra, which we'll be playing on this game, and I will be using ScumVM to play those. They have if you go to their website, there's a compatibility list for ScumVM as well that tells you the games that work with it. It's not really an emulator, but more of a front-end software to play older games. Syberia 1 and 2 are fully supported, running them through ScumVM. However, only the Mac versions of the games and not the PC version that I'm playing. I honestly didn't even know Syberia was on the Mac. But if you're playing this or want to play this on the Mac, I would recommend going the ScumVM route over basically everything I've told you. I don't think there's much. I mean, there are things I've told you here that would apply regardless, but using DG Voodoo is definitely something that applies to this particular situation of how I'm using the game, because it's not supported in ScumVM for PC. But since it is in Mac, I would definitely try to pursue the ScumVM route, because you're probably going to have more stability in the outcome of what ScumVM does than what DG Voodoo does, based on my experience with ScumVM. So yeah, there's Mac versions of Syberia 1 and 2. Anyway, my point is eventually the PC versions will probably be supported by ScumVM in the future, when they are supported, then that will be the ideal way to play these games. Until then, DG Voodoo is your best option as of 2023 for a PC. Just write that in there. And by the way, I'm using Windows 10 fully updated. I have no idea how any of this would work on Windows 11, like DG Voodoo CPL.exe. I don't even know if that thing will run on Windows 11. So this is all being done on Windows 10. Regarding the black lines, it's been a while since I've played this game. I did use DG Voodoo last time I played, but I don't remember the black lines being an issue. Or if they were, I honestly maybe didn't notice them, or I didn't care. I care more now, obviously, because I'm putting this up on YouTube for you guys. So I've only done my testing in the beginning area, that first little room of that motel, or whatever you want to call it, hostel. So there could be other black lines or even game crashes once I get into the gameplay videos. I don't know, as I haven't played the game through until last time, and I didn't go very far. I just skipped the first cutscene, basically, and I'm in the main area there, and that's where I was testing, just to make sure everything was going to be cool and work. So I'll address and update you on fixes as we encounter them in the gameplay videos. But as of everything I've tweaked and adjusted here, everything's looking good and working correctly for me in the game so far. So, okay, with all that out of the way, which is the main brunt of the video here, just basically explaining DG Voodoo stuff, let's take a look at the actual in-game settings. So the in-game settings consist of subtitles being the first category. I'll be using subtitles, I always do. I use them whether I'm recording videos or not, just because sometimes, depending on who you're talking to in the game or what's said, or how terrible the audio might be in the game, it can be hard to hear things, so it's nice to have a written version. The next setting is level of detail. I'll put this on high. Any modern computer should be able to run this game on high settings without much difficulty. Take a sip of drink here. Screen detail, get my country coming out. Put this on 32-bit, as this will give you the best visual clarity. Anti-aliasing, put this on or off if you want. Leave it on, I would suggest. The internet says anti-aliasing doesn't work in the game. From the menu there, it won't hurt anything to leave it on as intended. We're forcing better AA through DG Voodoo anyway. The sound volume, pick your volume levels. You're going to have music volume too. What did I say here? Pick your volume levels. I play when I play. Let's see, how could I word this better? I think I meant to say I may, not I play. I may decide to put this at 50%, depending on how overpowering the music is. A lot of modern games these days, they'll properly mix game music or ambiance music music with sound effects, so that when like a cutscene takes over and the music's pumping, in the background and people are talking, it'll lower that volume and increase the volume of the dialogue so that it's more easy to hear. A lot of older games won't do that though, and the dialogue will just get overpowered by the music. So just out of habit, in a lot of games I tend to just leave the effects at 100% and put the music at 50. Given how this game is though, and what this game is, a point and click adventure, I'll just have to see as we play. I might leave it, right now I'm leaving it at 100%, but I may drop it to 50. So that's it for the in-game settings. There's not a whole lot to configure, and there's really nothing you can configure in the game's settings files outside of it other than DG Voodoo stuff. So usually I'll go into the game and physically look at the settings with you, but since this is so simplified, I'm not going to do that this time. We'll glance at them when we start a new game. We'll just make sure they're set up correctly, like they already are and should be. So we'll look at them briefly, but I'm not going to go into make a big deal about discussing them. So in the next video, we'll be getting into the gameplay. I thank you for your interest in watching. I really appreciate it very much. So we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.